You're not even worth the time. Those were the words my cousin spat at me as I walked into the family meeting. They all burst into laughter. Poor guy still can't afford a proper suit, he mocked. The sting of their laughter hit hard, but I had been waiting for this moment. They didn't know how much I'd been hiding. I had a secret. A big one. You think this is funny? I asked, my voice low and controlled. I reached into my bag, pulled out the real estate contract, and slammed it onto the table. The entire room froze. Real estate contract? My aunt scoffed, still chuckling. What is this? Some kind of joke? I didn't answer. I simply let them stare at the contract, and slowly, I leaned back in my chair, watching their reactions shift from disbelief to nervous curiosity. My family, the ones who had ridiculed me, had no idea what I had been quietly building in the shadows. Years of hard work, of being underestimated, of being ignored. None of it mattered anymore. It was my turn. But they wouldn't just know about it yet. They wouldn't understand what this contract meant. What if I told them? What if they found out who I really was? The tension in the room thickened as my family's smiles faltered. I was no longer just a poor guy. This wasn't the end. This was only the beginning. My family sat there staring at the contract. It was as if time had frozen. My cousin, who had made sure to remind me of my poverty every single time we met, now looked like he had seen a ghost. I could see his mind racing, trying to piece together what was happening. Is this a joke? My uncle asked, squinting at the contract like it would suddenly reveal itself as some sort of scam. No joke, I said, my voice steady, but my heart was racing. This was the moment I had waited for. The moment where they would finally realize what they had all missed. I wasn't just an underdog anymore. I wasn't the one they could laugh at. This real estate deal? It was worth millions. A massive step in what I had been secretly building. Suddenly the door swung open, and my younger brother, who had always been the golden child, walked in. He froze when he saw the contract on the table. The tension was unbearable. I could see the wheels turning in his head. He knew something was off. What's going on? He asked, his voice full of suspicion. I gave him a half smile. Just a little something I've been working on. The family has no idea, huh? He didn't answer, but his silence spoke volumes. I could tell he was suddenly questioning everything. And that was just the beginning. What if this wasn't just a simple contract? What if it was a turning point? What if everything my family thought they knew about me was wrong? The room was filled with uneasy silence. The contract lay there, like a ticking time bomb, and my family was starting to crack. My cousin, who had mocked me the most, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His usual smug smile was replaced by a look of confusion. Why would you bring this here? My aunt asked, her voice shaky, as if she was already preparing herself for the worst. I've been working on this for years, I replied calmly, not letting the fear creeping in my chest show. My hands were still, but my mind was racing. I wanted to do it quietly, just in case this moment ever came. Now, it looks like it has. I could see my brother's eyes flicker back to the contract, his jaw tightening. He had always been the one to look down on me, the one who thought I was nothing more than a dreamer. But now, with the weight of this contract in the room, I could see doubt in his eyes. What is this really about? My uncle finally asked, leaning in closer. His face had gone pale. I could tell he was worried. He was scared. They were all scared. Took a deep breath and let the moment linger, savoring their discomfort. What if I told you I'm about to change everything? I said, my words hanging in the air, full of possibility. What if I told you that the person you've been laughing at is now worth more than all of you combined? The tension was unbearable. They couldn't breathe. They couldn't think. They only stared at me, waiting for something, anything, to give them a clue. But nothing came. "Is this real?" my cousin stammered, unable to hide his fear. "How did you—" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. I glanced at it, letting them feel the weight of the silence grow. It was a message about my latest deal, closing. Another big success. I glanced at my family. The realization had hit them all like a brick. The underdog, the poor guy, was now a force to be reckoned with. The silence was deafening. It felt like the entire room was holding its breath, waiting for the next big revelation. My family sat there, frozen, unsure how to process what they had just heard. My cousin, who had always been the loudest, was now uncharacteristically quiet, his eyes darting between the contract and my face. I could see the wheels turning in his head. He tried to find something, anything to hold on to, some way to explain this away. But there was no escape. The truth had been laid bare. How did you keep this from us?" My uncle's voice was strained, the words barely escaping. His lips, I looked around the room, each face now a mixture of disbelief and fear. They had thought I was nothing. They had thought I was weak. But now I could see the envy growing in their eyes. "I didn't want anyone to know," I replied calmly. "I didn't want to be part of your little game. I was busy building something bigger, something that none of you could understand. But now, you'll all see." "What are you going to do with all this?" my brother asked, his voice trembling now, as the full weight of the situation started sinking in. "What if I told you I'm not just done with proving myself to you?" I said, my voice sharp with finality. "What if I told you I could walk away from all of this today and never look back?" They stared at me, speechless, unable to process the truth. I knew what they were thinking. What if I left them behind? What if everything they had mocked me for, everything they had belittled me for, was now the key to my freedom? The stakes were high. And for the first time, I could feel a shift in the room. They were no longer in control. The power had shifted. Just then my phone buzzed again. Another notification. I glanced down at the message. A major investor had just confirmed their interest in my next big venture. Another opportunity to grow. Another piece of the empire I had quietly built. I looked up and met their eyes, my gaze, cold but resolute. "I hope you're all ready for the new me." The air was thick with tension. I could feel my family's eyes on me. But now, they were no longer filled with mockery or judgment. They were filled with something else. Fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of the unknown. Fear of what was to come next. "I can't believe this," my cousin muttered, his voice barely a whisper. He was still trying to process everything, still holding on to the belief that I was just bluffing. But deep down, I knew he understood. The weight of the contract, the power of what I had built. It was too real to ignore now. I stood up, slowly, deliberately, letting them feel the full weight of my presence. I wasn't just an underdog anymore. I wasn't the poor relative they had mocked. I was someone they needed to reckon with. "What's the point of this?" my brother finally asked, his voice cracking. "What do you want from us?" I looked at him. The brother who had always looked down on me. The one who had always been the golden child. The one who thought he had it all. And now, I had everything he would ever want. "I don't want anything from you," I said softly. But my words carried an edge. "I've already got everything I need, but it seems like you all need something from me." The silence grew heavier. They were all waiting for me to make my move, to pull the final piece of the puzzle into place. They had no idea what was coming. Then, with a calmness I hadn't felt before, I smiled. You wanted to know what I was capable of? Now you'll see. I turned toward the door, my family still frozen behind me. Don't worry, I said, glancing over my shoulder one last time. You'll get the invitation to my next big event. It's going to be a real eye-opener. With that, I stepped out of the room, leaving them all in stunned